It's season 4 and it's a fresh new episode series for us. Thanks so much for joining us for another episode of Enlightened Conversations, where each week we invite guests to share their views on the world, work and their personal lives in an enlightened way. Our hosts have been chosen especially to role model just how we do an enlightened conversation. Today's episode is hosted by Michelle Lightworker. Hi everyone, it's Michelle Lightworker here and welcome to Enlightened Conversations. I have a wonderful guest joining me today, Christin Ewald. Welcome, Christin.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for letting me know that you wanted to talk about the topic about what is enlightenment, because I think it's a fantastic topic and a lot of people have questions about it. And Christin joined us and on a previous show that we were talking about transforming our core issues, which was fabulous. And so for those of you who don't know Christin, let me introduce her to you. Christin is also known as Magenta Goddess, and she was born and raised in Germany and is now residing in Australia with her 8-year-old son. She's passionate about lightworking and practices it ever since her first Reiki healing in 2013. And in 2018, she also graduated as a Master Lightworker Practitioner and facilitates her own healings today. And besides this, she's passionate about nursing, and privately she loves parenting, enjoying her life and keeping fit and healthy. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So it's very hot here on the Sunshine Coast. However, I'm wearing a jacket because there's some very cold air conditioning happening at my house at the moment. So we're having a bit of a heat wave, aren't we, Christin?
Yes, we do. And I dropped my son off to his dad and I thought, oof, it is really hot. I'm sweating over here. Yeah.
Yeah. I saw your post on the White Christmas in Germany, and
Yes.
I thought, oh, that's so beautiful. Yeah.
It always gets me.
Oh, it's just so lovely to see that beautiful coat of white snow at Christmas time, isn't it?
It is. I thought my mom sent them through, and I thought she has one of these AI phones where she did some black and white thing. I'm like, this is actually real.
Wow, how
running
cool.
around with these amazing snow pictures and walking out. I'm like, poof, there's no snow. It's hot.
And you went back to Germany. Did you have White Christmas when you went to Germany? Was
Yes,
it during Christmas time?
actually.
Yeah.
It was beautiful because just when I think it just started snowing on that day, these big white fluffy, Christmas
wow.
snowflakes. And I took my son into the snow as well to go into the mountains and things with my cousin together and his kids. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. And ever since he wants to go back.
It brings out the inner child, doesn't it? The snow?
Does. It's so fun.
When we went over to Japan back in 2014 and we stayed in Tokyo, it didn't snow in Tokyo itself. Like we're in around about this time actually. And then we went up to Yamauchi, and that's where the Olympics were in Japan. And it wasn't snowing when we arrived, but shortly after we arrived, it started snowing. And then overnight, the whole thing transformed, and we had like really thick, like it was on the car. It was so beautiful because we looked out our window. It was just like a blanket, and it was oh my god,
this is actually my favorite, when you wake up and it's just still dark but the lights just shine on the snow and you go and it does this so crunchy feeling than the first snow that you step into. I love it.
It's beautiful.
It's a different world. Yeah,
it is. And it's interesting we're talking about enlightenment, because I mean, I think one of the things that really that I learned early on when I was studying Steiner education was this sense of beauty that we can plug into as adults and also as children, and that sense of beauty and that sense of connection to and awe and wonder in the world can really really light us up, like light up our heart chakra and light up our third eye chakra, because we're seeing things with that humility and that gratitude and that awe. And it really does. I think it's that's why a lot of people who aren't religious or spiritual per se are very connected, because they're actually plugged into the awe and the wonder and the beauty. It's something that's just dropped in that reminded me just now. I was talking about snow. How about that?
Yeah, I can feel that too. This lightness, because especially when I think about my family, because I'm here now and I do miss them a lot, but I know we're all one in unity and energetically. But there is this awe and wonder of what can actually happen when you stay in your awe and wonder. Like, you know, instead of sitting and grieving and being sad about and seeing all the negatives, like how you can actually find and create connection, or, oh, wow, so this is happening. That's actually a positive around, you know, me being here. So there's, yeah, that's really interesting.
Yes. And the other two things that dropped in about like when I studied Steiner education, there was the three things that we help our children move through. You know, that first 7 years, they really like it. The teacher is more like a priest, or not religious so much, but more like a priest in their teaching. They're very gentle, and they're very quiet, and they're very embracing of the child just being a being of the world, and not so much imposing themselves on the child, and just letting the child sort of come out and know that the world's good.
Yes.
And that sense of the world is good, and I'm safe, and I can trust, and it gives that child a sense of, we talk about attachment issues, and in order for a child to attach, it has to actually feel like it can trust. So I think when I was learning Steiner education, I hadn't really gotten the connections between what Steiner was talking about and what, say, attachment theory, or, you know, the developmental stages of children in mainstream, what we learn. But I've been able to marry those up. And I think that those stages of development are really super important. But he grouped them in like 7-year cycles, and that first 7 years where the child has to learn that the world is good, it doesn't mean that they'll like experience something that's good all the time, but it just means that if something happens, I'm safe. Like, I can be taken care of. I have safe people to talk to. It's that kind of relationship with the world. And then the second 7 years is 7 to 14, and they're focused on the beauty of the world, like we were talking about, being able to really, you know, connect with color and flowers, and you know, beauty around us, and nature, and animals, and, you know, have that real sort of sense of connection, really, I think, to life. And then the third is truth, to be able to feel the sense of their own morality, or what is my value, what are my values, what do I stand for, what does the world stand for, what do I want to believe, and find their own personal truth. And adolescents from 14 to 21 are on that journey predominantly. And so I think it was worth mentioning, actually, because as we're talking about snow, that dropped in. So I'm like, always trust what dropped in with the snow.
I was wondering too where that takes us, but I relate to that in what I'm working on and moving through myself as well. And I'm wondering if that is enlightenment, because it's not about thinking positive all the time, but is it about your constant connection to, you know, yourself and the world around you?
Yeah, I think from my perspective, enlightenment is, it's like we're all everything. We're all degrees of something bigger than ourselves, and in a lot of ways, and we're on that journey to kind of really embody that. And so I feel like enlightenment is like, even if, say, you or I are having a difficult day, or a hard time, or something like that's going on, you know, it would be enlightened. It wouldn't be enlightened to say, well, I shouldn't have something like that going on, or I shouldn't feel a certain way about what's going on. It would be an enlightened point of view, would be able to say, well, this is what's going on. This is the current scenario. This is the current situation. It doesn't have to be looked upon like in a static form, though. It doesn't have to be two-dimensional. It can be looked upon in many different ways. However, the predominant part of myself looking at this situation right now is this. And it might be angry, it might be upset, it might be afraid. It could be positive, whatever it is. It's being aware that that's what part of myself is actually viewing that situation from that lens. And then it's about accepting that, and also knowing that that's one point of view. You know, and not being engulfed and consumed by that part of ourselves that feels a certain way. An enlightened point of view is about being able to witness the self, or the selves, the bits and pieces, that make us up, and not to step into judgment around that, and to know that that's a journey. And you do that so beautifully, like with your work that you do, where you take people through the travel, the feeling, and that's exactly the witness. Oh, what's that? What's under that? What's under that? Where does that going? And so that you're I think as therapists, we provide a sense of witnessing to who we're helping. And I think that that's what we role model. And I hope we can role model it here too on Enlightened Conversations. That's kind of the goal, that no matter what anybody's saying, we can find an enlightened viewpoint around it.
Yeah.
So that's
so
one way of enlightenment, I think.
Yeah, really resonated. And then also when we guide them through the, like, not so much disconnection, but refocus from, is it the outside is happening to me too? Okay, so, but how does it affect you? It's like, okay, take this off. What's going on for you? That's the important part, right?
Yes, absolutely. And it's so personal, isn't it? And so then, and I guess a few of the things that I wrote down that I thought would be helpful to discuss, like just little markers of what might be helpful to talk about, were, let me just put my goggles on and I'll just have a look at these. So how do you know enlightenment is happening? What are the catalysts? Or that you're enlightened. What are the catalysts for enlightenment? Like what things kind of trigger that process to happen? How do we speed it up? How do we slow it down? And there are reasons too, by the way. We'll talk about those. And what are the barriers to enlightenment as well? And they're just a few of the things that I thought of just before we came on. But I mean, you said you had millions of questions too, so I'm happy.
Some of them are actually the same. Yeah.
Are they? Great. But I think we've sort of, how enlightenment is happening is when you're not so bound up in the situation that's just happened and occurred, that we might feel very affected by and destabilized by, or quite emotional, and we're able to actually not shut the emotion down, but we're able to actually be that and another part of ourselves that is holding a space for that part. That's a first inkling of enlightenment, I think. I think I guess you could say the organs that are created spiritually from what we talked about before, like the goodness, beauty, and truth, they're like the precursors to our like psychic abilities. The goodness of that being the heart, or the intuition, that we're safe in the world, and the world is good, and the beauty being our third eye and being able to see the magic and around us, and the truth being our crown chakra. So head, heart, and hands or heart, kind of spaces that we can hold for ourselves, and those things form in childhood, but we develop those things by witnessing all the parts of ourselves as well, and having goodness, beauty, and truth towards those parts of ourselves rather than just the external world.
Yeah, that makes sense. It so relates to me. I just took some notes actually, that I'm safe in the world. I'm personally just going back into my first 7 years and also Heinrich's 7 years. And while I was always, so many things come to mind, like intentionally teaching him that the world is safe, as the way you said, there are some things that come up that can just be lifted. But also the other thing that just came to mind, now I forgot my thread again. About being safe in the world. I think I forgot it.
It'll come back. It'll fly back around.
It'll come back. I think so too.
Yeah.
I'm just in awe of listening as well. This is so interesting.
Yeah. Oh, it's all just coming through too. I've just, I've just threaded together things that were very, very early on that I'd learned. when I think it was 24, I'd learned that around that, and I hadn't quite matched it up with the words, enlightenment. So it's kind of interesting. So, okay, well, we'll move on to what are the catalysts for enlightenment. I'm going to say everything. You know how they talk about mindfulness, be mindful. So I'm going to say we can be enlightened in any moment. We can be a witness to ourselves in any moment. When we're able to be more of a witness to ourselves in any moment, from that higher self perspective, being able to hold space for us, then we can start to do it for other people. And it becomes more of a natural thing, not, oh God, this is hard. Like, what's going on for me? Oh no, what's going on for them? I can't separate myself. Oh no. And there's all this enmeshment. Whereas once we start to be a bit more mindful of ourselves and a bit more creating a breath of space around us, kind of feels like we can do that with other people too more. And that's where, like, we don't need a trauma or a breakup or a eating disorder or like a crisis to go have a boom, wake up moment. Oh shoot, I got to wake up here. What am I doing with my life or something? It's not, doesn't have to be like that, but often they are those, aren't they? I think,
the
where we go,
turnarounds.
I guess moments in time.
Yeah. It's a practice too, isn't it? It's like, okay, I need to give myself a bit more space here. Practice to show up and tune in or lean back a bit. Okay, what's going on here? I've got something big coming up. Yeah. So hold space for that, and then I can listen better. Okay, cool. Yeah. Is that like do you think it's a state that you always have? Like, I mean, once you're enlightened, can you drop in and out of it?
Yeah, I think so, because I was going to say, like, the catalyst for enlightenment could be different from one day to the next, because we might be feeling more pain, or which might make us feel more vulnerable. We might be processing a lot of stuff, and we can't really hold an enlightened view for someone else. And it might be that we can only just hold space for ourselves, or we need actually somebody else to hold space for ourselves. And I think being like aware and enlightened that we need someone to hold space for us because we're not up to it is actually part of being an enlightened person, because there's no shame in that our nervous system can only hold so much intensity at any one time, and that's why people do have literally nervous breakdowns, because they're holding too much in their nervous system and it can collapse. And I've had people who have been extremely enlightened people, but they've gone through something and then something else and then something else and then something else, and it was just too much, and they needed that time of restoration. And there's no shame in that. Like, we're human beings, and part of the lesson, I think, can be especially for nurses, because I'm glad you're going.
I was just about to say, I can so relate to that.
I saw so many for burnout and things, but just in terms of knowing your limits is extreme. Like, it becomes less of a reaction from, oh, there's a catalyst and I'm triggered off and I'm going to do something about myself and I'm going to become enlightened, and it becomes less of that and more of, okay, what do I got to do to get myself through this week? Because I know what's going to happen. I know it's going to be challenging, because I know I've got this due, that to do. I've got this on. How am I going to manage my energy this week? So that's what enlightenment becomes more. It becomes more of a forward planning thing, and less of a, what just happened? I got to break it down, and unpack it. And so I'm clear. It becomes more, I'm clear. I know my limits. I'm going to have backup plans too, because, well, that might be more draining than I think it might be. So I'm going to, make sure I put some extra self-care in. And then it becomes a yummy journey, because you've got all these things you're looking forward to in the week, rather than I'm stretched. I've got so much to do. I'm so stressed out.
Yes.
oh gosh, I better take a couple of days for myself. And that's still good. That's still progress, because before you wouldn't be taking a couple of days for yourself, but it becomes just a bit more forward then. So it's not like it just changed its momentum a little bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. I actually do, what you said. So I'm quite good on the enlightenment journey. And
Yes.
I like this like backup. I could back myself a little bit more even. So I do the forward planning, even food wise, but then yeah,
Yes.
the real backup around it. And then it's also, because there's more to reality than sometimes just that one area we're playing. Like when I think about parenting or relationships or, there's so
Layers.
much we need that you want to show up with, so you feel like you got the balance in life.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes. And that's,
constant mastery.
well, some people could call that common sense, but if you're in the thick of it all
Mm,
though, it's almost like common sense goes out the window. And that's why we feel like we're on a treadmill and doing the same thing over and over again, because our
yeah,
kind of sensibilities, our common sense kind of doesn't, we can't see the wood from the trees, and we just keep going
yeah,
on the cycle. So it
yes,
is common sense, yeah, when you think about it, but it's not as easy as that to actually implement, because we tend to overcommit when we don't know
yeah,
our limits, and we tend to you know when we're out of balance, we tend to not notice it as much.
mm,
So I think enlightenment is being aware of those light and dark parts of ourselves, and putting them into context in our everyday world, in in the present moment, obviously, and then also in preparation for things that we, not like we're anticipating bad things to happen, but just in reality that things can happen, and so therefore we're prepared.
yeah. And maybe like this being open to of if I have a certain goal, but I also have all these needs, how else can I meet it? So it's like
Yes.
I'm still looking after myself kind of thing.
Yeah, and that, I think that's like when you have those really, well, when you're aware that you have competing needs within yourself, like, when a
Mm,
part of you wants to do this, wants to be a responsible parent, then there's a part of it just really wants a break, or just wants to have fun and just dance around and act goofy or whatever. How do I achieve both? Or there might even be another part that says, like I need to study. There's all these
mm,
parts, and when it gets really tussly, like that sort of pulling and torn feeling, and if you do that, you feel guilty. Oh, but if you do that, you feel guilty. But if you do that, you feel guilty. I think that's when it's really important to have a campfire chat.
yeah,
For that higher
I'm
self to
motivated.
sit down and go, right, let's have a chat, guys. Let's organize our week together. Family meeting, like in a family
Yeah,
meeting. My God, that saved my bacon so many times, just having an
yeah,
inner family meeting, because it gets that feeling of guilt away, and it makes you feel like you can't do wrong. Like you're doing, you're full on committing over there, but you also feel like no one's wrong. No one's competing.
mm,
They're all right. They're all
yeah.
very legitimate. So it's about validating those parts of ourselves.
It's beautiful because it reminds me back again to what you said earlier about the safety in the world, right? It's like whatever you do,
Yes.
you can't actually go wrong. It's just diving in, resolving them, integrating, and that's like, tang. Just like nobody
Yes.
else on the planet on the outside in that is not wrong either, you know?
No, because everybody's
Yeah.
in their own unique situation with their own
Mm,
unique competing
insight.
needs, and
Yeah.
some parts of themselves might have been very validated, but then
Mm,
other parts are unearthing themselves, and they're, like we talked about with the core issues,
yeah.
they might not be aware of a part of themselves until they've dealt with a core issue, and which is also part of that enlightenment process, because it's like thawing out the truth, unearthing
Mm,
it, getting understanding around why that wound was still there, healing that up, reconnecting with the part of ourselves that may have been suppressed through that, and then getting to know them. Like, anybody, like getting to know anyone's kind of tricky, and it takes, you know, willingness, and it takes sometimes persistence, because it takes questions, and not being
mm,
afraid to ask, what do you need? What do you want? What are you feeling? Like in a nice way, like in
yeah.
a really genuine, like I really want to know way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
And the energy behind it, like sometimes when it can be so harsh or angry or, it's like, oh,
Mm.
okay, cool. I
Yeah.
feel anger. just let me know, how does it affect you, or how do you feel then in that? Yeah, it's a whole
Yes.
different approach, isn't it?
Yes. I try and keep,
Learning
if
from it.
I've got like lots of competing needs, I try and just talk to the safest part of myself first to get a really strong understanding, clear one. It's a bit like when you sit down to a therapist and you do mediation, but the therapist talks to one part of you for a
Mm,
bit to get a really clear understanding. And then you've got the other part that's witnessing that. So they're
yeah.
consciously witnessing it. And then you can move over to that part that's maybe a bit more resistant or difficult and have a bit more of a conversation with them. And then you've got that part
Yeah.
who's already feeling validated. And so then that becomes more of a connection as well. And then you can have them talk to each other. But I
Mm,
don't think it's like like a therapist wouldn't have the two arguing parents or the two arguing couples talking to each other if they hadn't established some boundaries and respect. So it's
yeah.
about taking, this, holding the space for that, making sure that everybody's heard, but that it's an enlightened conversation. Pardon the
Yeah.
pun, but
Yeah, that's so funny. It does feel like
yeah,
it too, doesn't it? You go in with all these
yeah,
and then you come out and
yeah,
it's almost like a poof. It's literally
yeah,
light. I can remember once doing it and I looked back to the space and it was literally like a light explosion right there where it happened.
yeah.
Yeah, this is
Yes,
lightning because you understand what it's about, right? When I
mm-hmm.
think about just today in the car, I was driving and I could feel something, getting all upset at me, and I just like, no, we're just gonna drive home first and then we talk about the kind of thing, you're kind of dragging it on. And you think, once you understand it, because in that moment I didn't understand what my angry part was, but then once I understood
Mm,
what it was, it's like a light bulb does go off. You think,
exactly.
is that, now I get it. So then,
Yeah,
yeah, you can find deep understanding in things. Yeah.
yeah. And sometimes it's like, we think, oh, we should be so enlightened because I don't know why we think that, but more it's about
Yeah.
more it's about what does a part of myself need to tell me, rather than,
Yeah.
and they've got the like they've got the answers. Like I would never have thought my way to that. Like that part is actually telling me. And then
Yes.
you said it, like it's like a light bulb, but I didn't turn
Hmm.
the light on. All I did was like ask the questions and listen. And
Yes.
so it's not I'm trying to be enlightened, that kind of feeling. It's more like
Yeah.
I'm curious, I'm open and listening, and then it's all the answers coming in. It's like, wow.
Yes.
It's amazing though, Kristen, isn't it? The energy you feel
Yeah, I
when
love it.
that's unlocked.
Yes. It's,
It's I'm feeling a bit teary on that because it's such a gift, isn't it?
yeah,
Like,
it feels closer, but also like so soft and loving. But I
yeah,
have different nuances, sometimes there's freedom when you think, is that what, wow, like I didn't know it could come from that.
yes,
Or yeah, it's
yes.
just, yeah, just feelings often I haven't felt before. Yeah, and then you think like, okay, that's not
Mm.
what I know we can accomplish. What's going on here? That you can feel the grinding internally. You're like,
Yes,
okay, so I know what it can feel like, but that's not that. What's happening here? Yeah, and then you come
yes,
again, curiosity.
yes,
And I find that so much. I see how that also reflects to when we work with clients, because it's actually the same idea. I'm like, okay, you're really, really grieving. What, tell me about it. And then they unpack it. And then I'm wondering, when I see things sometimes, the question is, when is the world reflecting things back to us in a way that it's actually going on for us internally, and when is it actually not? Because I know in some situations it may not be, but more
yes.
often than not, I realized, even if I said, okay, this is going on for you, I just hold compassion for you. Even if I then go and 2 days later I think, oh, this is where it actually, I can relate.
Oh, that's such a good question, Christian. And I think so many people want to know the answer to that. I think there's like it's like that, your things are happening and you're on that little treadmill or in that cycle doing that thing that you
Mm,
haven't realized yet, and you're doing it and you think it's perfectly normal. But it's usually a
yeah.
survival thing, that we
Yeah.
do to cope. Thank God. That's why I'm always like grateful to those parts that when we actually have the conversation with them. Well, that's exhausted now and it doesn't work anymore, but it's thank you, like, for trying, like, awesome. And I'm sure you're going to be a great resource for me for something moderated, and you're going to be amazing. But then we kind of we unpack it and we become more aware of something. And then we go, okay, oh crap, okay, I got to work on this because I'm attracting these situations in my life, and it's on like rinse and repeat kind of thing. Like it just keeps happening over and over again. And we go through a process of learning with that part of ourselves, why we do it, what we get out of it, why we need to let it go, because it's creating a toxic, environment for us internally, externally. And then when we're willing to let it go, then we find sometimes we are presented with a mirror of ourselves. Maybe they're doing the same thing that we were doing. And maybe we have some information that we can say, hey, I can relate. I have been there myself, and we can be certainly an educator of how to help, things that they can use and things like that. Or it may well be that, that they're displaying a resistant part of ourselves, and they don't want to look at that. And that's hard because we can see the car crash in slow motion about to happen for them in their life. That's extremely hard. It's like, so it's survivor's guilt almost, it's like, people are being abused in front of our eyes, and we're watching it like a slow motion car having a crash. But in that situation, I think our enlightenment is very much around, how can I be at peace with someone who is not willing to heal that aspect of themselves? It becomes our issue, not their issue.
Yeah.
Because when we start to place our healing abilities in this lifetime on someone else, that's when we overstep our boundaries spiritually. Not everybody's meant to in this lifetime to get to that point. And that can be their gift to us. Is, how at peace can you be with me getting up to this level in my enlightenment? And then it's not about spiritual elitism. It's about, they were a gift to us to show us where we need to learn more peace in perceived imperfection. They're perfectly where they're meant to be. They're perfectly where they're meant to be. And then the other one is when we attract the same situation to us that we've attracted before, and that person is no longer triggering us, or they are triggering us. And we have to determine if it was a trigger as in I can't control what I'm feeling right now to express my needs, my boundaries with this happening. So that kind of trigger is I need to really set some really strong boundaries between myself and this person. That's a self-care thing. The second trigger is, oh, look, I know this isn't healthy. I know this is toxic. I've explored potentially conversations with this person that would have, invite some healing there or some awareness. That hasn't happened. Okay. I'm in acceptance that, again, they're at their place in their journey where they need to be, and no judgment. It's really unfortunate and it's ugly. And they're going to be spreading that out to the world or whatever, but that is what it is. And some people just do. Unfortunately, this is my truth, but it might not be your truth. But I think some people do just exist in this lifetime to be triggers and catalysts for us, because that's the contract we've made with them. And that's the contract that they've made with lots of people. And that's okay. Instead of being in judgment of that person being wrong and worst thing, and because that's all my stuff, I would be more like, how can I practice peace in this situation?
Yes. So. Yeah, I can relate to that too. It's like, okay, like, how can I create mental clarity for them without them needing to change? How can I create peace without them needing to change? Like,
that's it. That's it. It's a really big one though, Christin. And I find the more woke people there are, The more, unfortunately, this is kind of where we see it extending when people are so triggered they can't control the cancel culture. That's when people go into the cancel culture, because they are so triggered and they can't contain it, and they start to viciously attack people. They do it on a big scale, and they attract it on a mass. And so you have a whole bunch of triggered people canceling somebody because they can't cope. They can't cope, rather than, okay, we can have boundaries with that person. That's where this person is up to. And potentially, I think you can, when I say peace, I think we find, we know it's abusive. We know it's not right. Like in terms of ethical, we know it's not moral, those kind of things. We can name it. We're not pretending. We're not going, oh, I'm at peace, go away. It's not happening. But we can see it. Yeah. We understand it. We know it. We address it with the authorities if we need to. All those things that are things that need to happen in society. However, we find there's some part of ourselves that switches into an ability to have compassion for that person. And I think that's where that's where you can tell if you're really at peace, if you've got, even it's a little bit of compassion, even if you can say to yourself, I'm willing to have compassion for that person. I think you've made a step towards peace, because you've acknowledged their role, their limitations, potentially the contract that's been agreed upon, and you're on your way to owning your reactive judgments and things.
Yeah, while still also honoring your boundaries and needs and things. So, I see what you mean now with the, as I said, like how much are we a reflection of what's going on? Because sometimes, like, okay, what part are we playing that we need to own and look after in order for that to change?
It's a big one, isn't it? Because I think there's people that are on the woke journey, and they start to become aware of all the things that aren't okay. And I did it when I was early days in my recovery of my eating disorder. Everyone in my family was wrong. I was into, if only they were just deal with their stuff, I would be okay.
And I was the other way around, because I always thought, okay, so where am I like that? Where am I treating someone like this? Where am I doing that? And then you just constantly do that. And then it's like, is it really true? Because at some point you think, well, actually, it's not that I called it in or intentionally created that situation. Sometimes things happen, and then, so when do you stop trying to see yourself and everybody else that's around you?
Exactly. I think it's that threefoldness. Like, where do I need to do some healing? Where do I need to set some boundaries for my own self-care? And where am I starting to step into some peace around this situation? So where am I having to get off this treadmill of going around this cycle? Where is this person? I mean, potentially you don't need to set a boundary with that middle space, because you can just educate people, but it's fine. You can do a bit of educating, but unless they're willing, you can't, the self-care line changes, doesn't it, in that middle situation. But so I guess in terms of how do we speed up enlightenment, what do you think after what we've talked? What would you surmise?
I wonder if awareness, practices like meditations actually help to make us more aware.
Meditation.
Other than that, I would just say, like, practicing what you just said, this, like, okay, where's my part in this? What can I do to, help myself through this and improve that, or create my own enlightenment within?
I think because enlightenment's sort of like a stage of evolving our consciousness. We're all in the process of it anyway, and it might not look like someone's enlightened, but they're on the journey of it. So technically we're all sharing the same journey, and it's just a matter of where we're up to. So anybody that we're judging for not being enlightened, well, it's like judging a part of ourselves, like we've been there too. And so then we can use that as a, I think, speeding up mechanism. So we can say, oh, how can I be more accepting of that part of myself? If I'm finding myself judging, doing a lot of judgy stuff, and I guess just owning our own reality and our ability to feel and to think and to know what we're doing and not doing, like in terms of, why am I doing that? What part of me is on board right now? Well, who's in the driver's seat? Like who is this? You know, is this my, you know, that's fine, whoever is, as long as we're aware.
Yeah.
So, practicing being more aware of our different parts of our personality, whether we write them down, whether we go into the campfire talking to them, or whether we draw them, different parts, whether we do them in clay so they all look different so we get an idea of how they're feeling. Like there's all these different ways we can do that to speed it up. And then how we can slow it down, well, we can be unwilling because our will is very personal. Like, no, I can't tell you to be willing. You know, I can encourage you by saying, hey, if you're willing, this is probably, if your will's engaged with this, you'll probably find that you have more, it happens a lot quicker for you. But if you don't have your will engaged, you'll probably find that there's probably a reason, and we can do some exploring on why, but things will happen a lot slower. So yeah, not being willing will slow things down for sure. Asking yourself the question, how willing am I? Or asking the different various aspects of the personality how willing they are with the situation.
Yeah.
Why? Good.
That's a good one. Yeah.
And also sometimes it's with more awareness on your energy. If you know, especially for people who have, you know, lots of downloads coming through and things like that, on the full moon, and you know, just like writing all it down and then going back to it later can be a good thing, instead of sharing it with everybody all the time. It can be too much. So asking ourselves how therapeutic it is for ourselves to be sharing it with everybody else. The blow by blow might be too much, and it may look bipolar as well to other people. So where it's just what it really is a huge amount of information coming through because we're affected by a trigger, a catalyst, the moon, whatever it is. Sometimes it's good to be aware of the need to slow it down, not by putting a stop in place, but just to say, I need to respect my humanity as well, and my energy, and how much this is burning through my kundalini's burning a hole in my other chakras or something. I need to be really careful, and to just, it's that yin and yang, isn't it? So
yeah. Either side of the scale is like, ooh, okay, bring it back.
Yeah,
That's the good thing,
definitely.
was we can always adjust, right? Even if we think like, oh, I acted out from this part, but then when you change it with yourself, you can go out, okay, and it changes energetically. It's not like that we do permanent damage or anything like that, right?
No, absolutely. And sometimes sharing it when it's really intense like that is abusive to ourselves, because it's almost like we are, because we're not like out of balance in a bad way. It could be we're out of balance in a good way because we've got a lot of information coming through, and that's awesome. Like honor that, like create that beautiful space to have it all come through. But it's just, it can be abusive because when the veil is that thin, and then we share it with people who just don't understand it, it can attract a lot of abuse. It can attract a lot of unnecessary abuse for ourselves. It's almost like the healing we need to honor our sacred is the result of sharing it with people that don't get it, or may attack it, is kind of, what am I trying to say, Christin? You got it?
Yeah, I do.
It's attracting the abuse.
Yeah.
You know, that we don't require it at that time, but it's attracting that because we're not in the space where we shared it. I mean, I'm guilty of that too. I've done that a lot. Yeah, a lot. And it's one of the biggest lessons I've learned, especially through COVID. I learned a lot about myself. I don't get it right all the time. Who does? But you know, just a lot of information about what's for you and what do you need to know, what do you need to share and when, and that's
I
like
learned that a
slowing
lot.
down.
Yeah, in my nursing as well. And I learned earlier too about it's not very hard to be on the verge of abusing yourself, like, because it's, easy. We can just be hard on ourselves, high expectations, all that kind of thing. And then it's so easy to just be nagging or criticizing or wearing it thin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
actually
same.
had a funny thing drop through about like, and I didn't realize it was related to what we're going to talk about, but I got to share it. It must have been because I was, when things just drop through and you don't realize they're relevant. But something dropped through and it was, when you're not like got the stinking thinking, negative, judgment about other people either. What is going on up there? Like I actually had an awakening on that. And I'm like, yeah, what is going on up there? Because I was like, I'm not a Nazi, like looking at my thoughts every second of the day kind of person. So I'm like trying to kind of then go, well, what is going on up there? Because I don't have all that other stuff going on up there. So that's really interesting to have just happened. What's going up there a lot for me, I'll tell you, is songs. A lot of songs. I sing in my head a lot.
I do
have
too.
songs on repeat. Yeah, lots of dancey songs.
Yeah.
A lot of dancey songs. Just in my head dancing all the time. I wonder why I'm like this sometimes, like, oh yeah, I'm dancing again. What
I was
else?
being told I'm off with the fairies, but I'm like, this is really fun to be here.
Yeah, right. That's cool. Like this is a really good discovery to make this, by the way, because I've never thought about this. So this must have been prep for this show. The other thing is lots of quotes and stuff do come through, like they drop through, and I'll just be writing a lot of quotes down on my phone, and then I'll go back to them and maybe write an article later. But they're just like lots of quotes, like amazing, like oh my god, like quotes. This is crazy quotes. Lots of like solutions to problems drop through.
Yeah.
So I kind of like, instead of immediately having that bitchy reaction to something, usually I'll get the enlightened view on it. I'll get the reason why this is happening on a global scale thing, or it's a huge enlightened view of what everybody's just in there having a fight about energetically with each other. And I'll be like, oh no, I got it. It's about this. And then so that saved me all that time of being in the bitchiness, which is fine, because sometimes we've got to work our way through the bitchiness, whatever. But sometimes it's kind of cool just to go, oh, I know what that's about. That's cool.
Yeah. It helps.
And then the last thing that I know I'm aware of, and there might be more, obviously, obviously downloads, but that sort of goes without saying because we've said it about 1 million times during this conversation. But downloads from spirit are a big one. But creative ideas, like creating stuff and ideas, and just, oh wow, I never thought of that way. And just not in terms of a solution so much, just as in creating something new, or how that thread goes with that and how that would be great. Like, I don't know, it's kind of like a more of a creation thing rather than a solving a problem thing. More proactive rather than reactive in a way.
Yeah. My downloads a little bit different sometimes. I have even downloads sometimes when I'm really upset and I'm like, why? Oh, I get stuck in working through it. I haven't that enlightened thing. This is why this is happening. This is and then, other sides of the story from other people that were involved. I'm like, it's okay. And then it's like, okay, now I can move through it. I get it. Or books, or I have the same with like solutions or creative ideas around drawing and cartoons, and I know.
I like how you say
I have to write
cartoons.
them down more often
Cartoons.
too. Cartoons, yeah. I do like cartoons.
That's so good. Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? With downloads. They do differ from time to time. They just drop in however they're meant to, really, I think. And just to trust that process.
Yeah. And they would like fast forward our enlightenment Would that, like, I feel like that sometimes when I'm like, oh, okay, this is why I'm being called to write this. Yep, I can see how I have to move through my own things now to,
Yep.
you know,
Yep.
birth it or something. But it's also so fun. So it's not just that it's like, you know, hard work. It's like, oh, okay. And
Yep. And
I had another question about, I don't know if it's a different topic, but or if that has to do with the willingness you already talked about, the choices we make even in life, right? Like where we move or the relationships we end or don't end. Like,
yep.
does that involve our enlightenment or, you know, like, or
Yeah, I
is
don't
it
think we're
that
an
we're at where
island.
we're at?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
really don't think we're an island. And that's been another big piece of the enlightenment puzzle for me.
Mm,
Because I think early in my journey of understanding things, I just thought it all was about me. I thought everything was about me, and that was happening because of me. That was happening because of me, and I got to heal this, and I got to heal that. And then I realized at some point, I realized, oh no, it's not actually all happening. I'm part of this picture. It's everybody's got. I'm part of contributing as well to other people's picture. In
mm,
so far as it's not so much about me, this one.
yeah.
And yeah, I got more of a sense of relax. It's okay. It's other people's sometimes, and how you feel about what's going on with them is all about you, sure, but what's happening for them, that's their unique journey, and you may be called to be a part of it, just even to hold space. And because in that principle of unity, even if we have an understanding, what this is about for them, that adds something, I'm sure, to their
Mm,
situation. Sometimes I think is that one person that can actually hold an enlightened view for us,
yes.
contributes like a injection of light, and it's not for our learning, but we're contributing something
Positive.
for
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
Yes, so I think that that's a really good thing to bring up, Christin,
Mm,
because I didn't realize that. I just thought it was all about me all the time. Everything's about me. Well, no, we're all
yeah.
connected in unity. So what's happening to
Yeah.
you is going to affect me, but how do I feel about it? But what I feel about it is going to affect you. And so then
Mm,
that's them. That's about them. So I love that. I love that. Like knowing where the spiritual, what's being called to be spiritually lifted. Like, are we able to
yes.
hold the lift, or are we
Yeah.
needing the lift?
Yeah.
It's an interesting one.
Yeah, it is. You can shift quite big things too if you do it together like this or just trust where it's needed, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
massive,
That's why
massive, and
I've been wondering so many times if I've already sabotaged it. I know it's in a way always
mm,
perfect, but you know, like for example, back then when I was about moving from the bush to the coast, like, you know, so many people said you're gonna come to Clown. I'm like, I want to go to Malulu. I'm like, have I already like put this thing, you know, like a stick into the spanner, so to speak, of
hmm
the whole thing and made it harder for me? Or can you, you know, can you make it easier for you if you just trust your intuition all the time? Like,
yeah.
yeah, so interesting. Or how do you affect other people? You know, do I say it or do I just stay here, hold space and love them or let them come to me? Like,
Mm.
mm,
Oh, I think if in doubt,
trusting.
just go into how you feel about the situation, and if you feel
And then
good,
trust that.
yeah, and then if you feel good, then you'll drop
Yeah.
in what you're meant to do next, if you're meant to do anything. And sometimes the thing you're meant to
Mm,
do, and I've been told this several times, is be at peace with it, where things are.
yeah.
There's a lot of action in action when it comes to peace. Often we think about peace as being this really passive vibration, but I think it's actually really super powerful. And it's
Mm,
probably the biggest prayer we can even do, because if we hold peace around a situation, we've already come to a solution.
mm.
And it's an energetic vibration that it contributes a lot of power to the healing process. So,
It allows
yeah,
for a lot of growth as well.
yeah,
So,
absolutely. And so, what are we? The last thing is, what are the barriers to enlightenment?
yes.
Well, apart from our will, slowing it down, I think the barriers to our enlightenment are sometimes necessary. Like we're not meant to be
Mm,
evolved at that level yet. You know, you look back at 5 years and go, but I thought I was really like super, like, don't we? Like,
Yeah. It's like, oh, cutie.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, you cutie boy, little cutie. And I'm sure, like, I know how far I've come, but I'm sure, like, in, you know, another 30 years, I'll be like, oh wow, you had so far to come. And that's cool. That's cool. Being at peace with actually where we are is probably the least barrier to enlightenment there is. Being not at peace with where we are is probably the biggest barrier to where we are, or not even wanting to look at truth, and not having that willingness there. But I think we're all on the journey, we're all on the work in progress. And that's why I just love so many people and just look at what they're contributing to the world rather than what they're not contributing to the world, because everybody's contributing something.
Yeah, interesting. Their own message. And that is, I feel like, what gives you that purpose feeling, doesn't it? Because I've been having this like sort of internal, what is life about? Is it about becoming enlightened? What's the purpose around me getting up? You know, like what is the intention behind my actions every day? You know, like
yeah. And it
this
can change from one day to the
kind of
next.
search too.
It can change from one day to the next. And I think that just it's almost like being a surfer, you know, like riding the wave and just, well, this is a wave and we're riding it. And it'll be a bit different tomorrow, and the purpose might be different tomorrow. And we'll be okay with that too. You know, we just got to get up, stay balanced, enjoy the ride, and just let ourselves be in the moment with that wave. And then when you have a lot of that peace and a lot of the joy from that, and you string them together, you understand that every piece was necessary, even though they're all separate waves. You know, they're all part of the same ocean.
Even if we wonder what, or you know, reflect on regret, or did I do this wrong, or that's so true. It's like, now I can see it.
Exactly.
That's true.
And it's interesting because the backspace, or the past, when you're a surfer, propels you forward. But if you look back, you fall over, you know. So it's kind of like letting the past propel us into our present, and that's where it serves its purpose, rather than rehashing the past.
Which is also beautiful. When I think about goals, right? When you go for a walk, you might go straight, but as a surfer, you have to ride the wave. You can hold a vision, but you may not straight go there. So you have to actually be in the present, be at peace with it, and then see where it goes, kind of. You have control over it, but you know, not just. That's beautiful.
That's a good analogy. We'll finish on that.
Yes.
But I hope it has been enlightening for you.
Yeah, it has actually. Yeah.
I've enjoyed the wave. Have you?
Yes, I did. Very much so. I feel more lighter and enlightened, actually.
Yeah, good. Yeah.
I'm proud of what I'm already doing. Yeah.
Yeah, from snow to surfing. How cool is that?
Yes, true, right? In Australia and Germany, that's really suitable for me too. It's beautiful.
Absolutely love how that did that. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody, and we'll look forward to another enlightened conversation with you all soon. Bye for now.
Thank you. Bye.